All right, this is about 10 minutes starting in 3, 2, 1 now. So, this is a story about me playing a tabletop role playing game. You may have heard of it, Dungeons and Dragons. I don't play a lot of tabletop role playing games, and this may indicate why. So our adventuring party runs into a creature called a death dog. You can Google it if you're unfamiliar, but it's basically a two-headed wolf. And my first instinct, as it always is when there are puppies in games, is to try to befriend it. And because the game master was my brother, and I rolled pretty darn high on an animal handling check, our party gained a death dog as a companion. His name is Sophie. He is a very good boy. So I decided to do that as my character art for this week. And as you can see, I'm pulling up references of dogs because I've never actually drawn a dog before. I've tried to draw wolves in the past, but I've never gotten very far because the anatomy is very different. I'm used to human anatomy. So I gave him two heads because death dogs are a two-headed wolf creature. And I wanted to give that range of emotion that our friend, the good boy Sophie, has, which is either murderous monster dog or happy, playful, friendly puppy. And so I think having two heads gave me the ability to do that in one still image. I am not happy with the angry face through most of this beginning part, and you will see coming up eventually I realize I keep tweaking it as I go, and I just can't get it to look right. I'm really happy with the happy face, the one that's closer to us, and I just couldn't figure out what it was. I guess we're already past it now because I ramble, but eventually I realized the snout was just too big, and once I adjusted the size of the snout, it all kind of work together. I'm still way happier with the other face. I think I did a lot better of a job on the happy face. Maybe it's just I like happy dogs more than I like angry dogs. But I tend to think they're both adorable. So, no big deal. So this one took me a while to do the line art on because I wanted to get way more detailed than I needed to be, and it became very tedious for me eventually because I gave myself way too much work to do. So once I get past the faces, I start doing bigger open shapes. And I decided to give him a little skull to play with, just to, even though his happy face is happy, I wanted to keep that monster element. And I was going to give this one a whole big background and try to do like a scene with it. I may still do that later, but I did not ultimately do this. I finish up rendering the dog, and then I had to stop. So I'd like to give it like a floor or a ground, and actually work on doing backgrounds. I don't do backgrounds a lot. Like I don't do scenes, and I really should. That's something that I should start working on. So maybe eventually I'll get to that. But I like character design, and so that's ultimately what I always do. Yeah, the line art on this one took a while. Eventually, I get into coloring it, and I tried to get a little creative with coloring it because largely the whole body is just one layer of brown, and I wanted it to look like fur, and I wanted it to look dynamic, but I also didn't want to go in and give it individual fur when the whole thing is one solid block of color anyway. It's just easier to keep everything that's one color, or like one article of clothing on a character on one layer. And that way, and I put the little feet in there. I had to look up how to do dog feet. I did a lot of research into canine anatomy during this research, and you've seen a few times when I've pulled references into my workspace. I cut out the actual Google searches because I realized I don't want to leave any like copyrighted images or anything in this video, and if I just happen to click over to something like I cut those out, but I don't necessarily care if you see that I have to look up references for things because that's part of learning. So what I started doing was just copying them and putting them into the project that I'm working on, so I can have it side by side. So you probably saw there were some wolf heads in there. Skulls, I just kind of have a good grasp on. Human anatomy, I rarely have to look up. Sometimes I have to look up like specific poses if I want to do something, or I have to like take pictures of myself for reference. But I have the most practice doing human anatomy, so that's not something that I ever really worry too much about. Here I am now shading. I'm doing some cell shading, and I end up putting way too much on the angry face. I guess more when I get into lighting. I have to go back and take some of that out. I wanted it to be darker, so I spend a lot more time on the shading than I do on the accent light. And here I'm playing with some gradients. I play with some gradients throughout. I found this neat trick that I got from the Drawfee channel. So if you like these kind of videos, watching people draw, check out the Drawfee channel. I don't have to plug them; they're way bigger than me. But I do learn a lot from them, and something that I kind of learned from watching some of their videos was this technique of taking your shading and then adding a gradient layer to the shadow layer. And it was a look I kind of liked. I do it a little bit. I do it kind of subtly, ultimately at the end. And then I kind of blurred all this shading at the end, you'll see coming up, and I really like how it looked, but I kind of wish that I had planned to do it going in, because I lose some of the shading on the face, which I was really happy with. So I might go back and tweak that. So now I kind of, pretty much anytime I do one of these projects, I learn a lot while going through it, and then the stuff that I learned doesn't apply to the stuff I already did, so I feel like I have to go back and redo it. But that's part of art. That's part of practicing. And I can't say that these projects that I'm putting on videos are anything more than just me practicing. Basically, I'm just doing character pinups and telling you about the characters that I'm designing. But if I'm actually going to work on some major artwork, it's going to be something I'm going to want to go back in and fix all those little problems. So yeah, I mainly like doing this for playing around. Here you'll see I just put way too much highlighting on the face, and it got real jumbled, and it stopped looking like light. It started looking like, I don't know, mange or something on his face. So I go in and take some of the highlights out. The happy face there, I'm a lot happier with. See, I'm taking some of the highlights out here. And yeah, so it gets very I get into a routine kind of, and basically what I'm trying to force myself to do is to try new things, because like I know how to do cell shading, I know how to make a solid color and then put a shadow and then put an accent light. I want to kind of keep forcing myself to do more than that. Keep forcing myself to try something I haven't tried before. So right here I'm kind of blurring. I put a Gaussian, Gosling, I don't know. I put a blur on both the shading and the highlight, and I like how it looks, but if I had planned to do that from the beginning, there wouldn't be as much spillover where the dark parts spill over to where the light should actually be hitting it. Maybe that doesn't make sense to anybody but me, or I'm just not explaining it well. But or maybe it makes perfect sense and I'm overthinking it. Who knows? I feel like there's no amount of times I can say this without still being unsatisfied that I've gotten the point across, but I am just way happier with the happy face than I am with the angry face. Though I am happy with the angry face. If it was just the angry face, I'd say, okay, that's a solid dog face that you did there. But I'm really happy with the other one. And shading the skull, don't worry, I fixed the colors in a moment here. There you go. See, they're all fixed. And then this is where I was like, I could do that background, but I'm not gonna, at least not in this video. So thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it and have had fun. Like, comment, subscribe, or don't. I don't care. And check out Vaguely Scientific, the podcast. Again, shameless plug there. Yeah, thanks.